We're now going to have a look at why guys who are building their confidence often take 7 times longer doing it on their own than those who access high quality support and resources. Why building confidence isn't an independent journey. We're going to explore what you can do to make sure that this journey goes as quickly as possible for you and you're not wasting time. This is the final part in the 5-part series on Nice Guy Recovery to build authentic confidence and become the man you've always wanted to be. Now, I've been running the Brojo men's self-development community since about 2014, and I've witnessed the difference between guys who do it all by themselves and guys who do it with support. And the difference is night and day. It's astonishingly different. In my own journey, I did it all on my own at first. It took me 7 years of just sort of reading and accessing resources passively and going and trying stuff on my own. And then when I finally switched to getting some coaching, the amount of progress I made in the next 6 months was more than that 7 years. I felt like I was just stupid for having done it on my own. All this being said, for those of you who are worried that I'm just trying to sell something, there is a free Nice Guy Recovery course. You can access it below in the comments and description, and you can do it all on your own if you insist. Let's talk a little bit about why nice guys fail when they're trying to do it all on their own. First off, and this is like anyone working on anything by themselves, it's the blind leading the blind. It's all the information you have giving you instructions. So if you don't have better information in there, then you can't possibly make better decisions. You're only going to work with what you've got. And even when you go to absorb passive material, you read books, watch videos, even do courses, it's still going to be that brain interpreting and filtering that information, deciding what to keep, how to understand it, how to translate it into what your new beliefs are going to be. And so there's going to be no external force saying like you missed something. One of the biggest barriers is that the nice guy system is so obsessed with staying in control, it will actually pretend to be your friend. It will pretend to be the new system. I saw this in myself and I've seen it in many others. So the nice guy system will realize that you're challenging it, and so will change to suit you and make you feel good. It will pretend that it's your friend. For example, people who start using honesty to control others. They now feel like they're being more honest, but controlling others is still the main goal. They haven't actually changed. Or like somebody who is like a really quiet, meek people pleaser, suddenly becoming a big extroverted show off and not realizing they're still trying to get approval. Need somebody outside of the system to drag you out. It's just like that movie, The Matrix. Like you don't know that you're in it. And you need someone else to show you when it's still operating. You gotta understand that the nice guy system's primary goal is to avoid emotional discomfort, or at least the anticipation of emotional discomfort, because it just doesn't want to accept the fact that the only way through is to do things that you feel very unfamiliar and unsure of and uncomfortable doing. You're going to have to get scared, and you're going to be working in an operating system that won't allow that. Of course, there's just going to be blind spots in your practical awareness as well. A lot of coaching is, of course, there's just going to be blind spots in your practical awareness as well. A lot of coaching is actually techniques and tactics. For example, if you want to learn how to connect with people by being yourself, that's not something you just fall into. You have to learn what it means to express yourself honestly. You have to learn how it is that you could share something vulnerable without fucking freaking someone out. The difference between sharing and oversharing, these are technical issues, and you need someone to train you, just like if you are learning to dance, you need someone to show you the steps. One of the main issues I notice is that the nice guy system will not allow you to get into confrontations. And confrontations are one of the main things you must do to break out of the system. You must upset other people with the truth. And if you're not allowed to do that, you can still make some progress. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I did 7 years on my own. But once you get into confrontations, like facing possible rejections or upsetting people or even making someone really angry, that's when your development really accelerates. Also, frankly, for nice guys, you need a masculine influence. If you had a healthy masculine influence growing up, you wouldn't be here right now. And because you've never had it, you've never embedded any of that kind of wisdom in your head. You can't make that stuff up on your own. And even when you watch it in videos or read it in books, your brain's just going to reject it as like being a jerk or, something else. So you're never going to really accept what it looks like because it's going to be very foreign to you. Things like assertiveness rather than aggression. These are going to be concepts that somebody else has to walk you through. Unfortunately, most of the online stuff is just bullshit. It's either really toxic alpha male guru shit, or it's just really unscientific nonsense to sell a course. trying to like filter that on your own from a nice guy perspective, where the nice guy system itself is very lacking in critical thinking, it's tough. You're going to have to do a lot of trial and error. You're going to have to waste a lot of time, money, energy figuring out that the thing was bullshit. Accountability and outside guidance are essential. I mean, for a start, you have to be able to see yourself accurately to make these changes. You have to be very honest with yourself about your patterns, and patterns are very hard to see from the inner person perspective. Like, even though I coach people with this, I still need somebody else to help me find my patterns because my mind's too invested in my image of myself. It doesn't want to have a look at the bigger picture. It will dismiss evidence. It will tell me a story about who I am rather than show me who I am. Another person can show me who I am. You know, a lot of the nice guy stuff is patterns that actually stretch over days, sometimes even weeks. So by the time the bad results happen, you don't realize that you started this process last Monday. It's very hard to have that kind of cosmic perspective. But somebody else will ask you, well, what was the build up? And you'll see the pattern and they'll present it to you and you'll finally see it. You're also working in a belief system that's been embedded deep in your psyche since you were a child. There's an old joke about fish and water. You know, one fish says, the water's cold today. And the other fish says, what the fuck is water? This is the water you've been in your whole life that you don't even realize exists. The whole nice guy universe around you is false. Politeness, for example, you probably think that's a good idea. Have you ever challenged the idea that being polite is also being fake? That you have to say thank you when somebody gives you a gift, even if you don't like the gift? These are the kinds of things that you just take for granted that these are immutable laws that can't be broken. You're in a universe that can't look at itself and see the malfunction. You're also probably surrounded by people who share your beliefs. Half of them are the ones who gave you those beliefs. So the people around you aren't going to be able to give you perspective because they're in the same program themselves. They can only see what you see. They also follow the rules. And there's some practical tips. You know, one of the first things that happened when I got coaching was realizing that I had to figure things out with trial and error that one dude could have just shown me in an hour. You know, when it came to, say, going up to a stranger and talking to them and getting to know them right from scratch while being completely honest, you know, I had to do that piece by piece and with thousands and thousands of like really bad experiences, well, at least hundreds of bad experiences. Whereas one guy could have taken me out for an afternoon and just obliterated all of that because he's already done it for 10 years. Just stand on the shoulders of giants. When you get coaching or accountability from a group or something like that, no one's going to be trying to spare your feelings. Some therapists can even be guilty of trying to like make their client feel good about the session. It's what I like about coaches over therapists in general is a coach is willing to upset you. The coach is willing to, you know, lose you as a client by telling you the truth. And there are some hard truths you're going to have to fucking face, man. Like brutal stuff that you are not going to like hearing about at all because it's going to undermine the image you've had of yourself your whole life. But somebody has to tell you this stuff. All those people who have told you your whole life that you're such a nice person, they don't understand why it's not working out for you. They're trying to protect your feelings. They know there's a problem. They're not confused. They just don't want to tell you the truth. You need people who are going to come and say, like, dude, this is your fault. Look, you're doing this, this, and this. No wonder it's not working. And having guidance from somebody else also will help you skip the bullshit stuff. There are a lot of dead ends I went down. I went down the kind of red pill pickup artist thing. That was a dead end. Talk therapy, waste of time for guys like us because we just identify with our problems and bathe in them. There are things that you don't even need to bother exploring because they just don't work at all, but it'll take you years to figure that out if you were to try it on your own. So, what coaching and support from others actually fixes is all the stuff that keeps the system up, avoidance of discomfort. You will have to get uncomfortable if you work with a coach. It doesn't mean you'll be terrified, but you will break the rule that everything must be emotionally safe all the time. The technical and mental barriers to acting with courage. Courage is a main factor in this development. Courage is one of the probably top two or three main pillars of self-confidence. But courage doesn't mean you have to force yourself to do something you're terrified of doing. It's actually more of a kind of intelligence. It's a tactical way around your fear to make sure you do the thing that you're afraid of doing without setting off too much panic. Sure, you will be uncomfortable and a bit hesitant, but if you know the technicalities of courage, which someone can help you with, then you can make these changes without pushing yourself too hard and losing faith. Coaching will help you with your lack of clarity on your values. What I love being able to do as a coach is talking to someone and I can see who they really are, but I also can see that they can't see that. And I can help reflect back to them the times where they were proud of themselves, the times where they were being the person they know they should be. Help them see that they have that capability, that they know who that is and how to be it. They're just not doing it enough. Coaching will help you get over your weak inner boundaries, the deception you put yourself through that enables people-pleasing behavior. I'd say 90% of my coaching sessions are about calling out the lies somebody has told themselves that keeps them stuck. Once you see that those things are lies, it frees you up to be less limited. You now have more options in what you can do because you're not believing the limitations your mind's telling you about. Coaches can also call out just some of your basic methodology problems. A classic one for nice guys is that relationship means making a woman happy. That's a very tactical mistake. That's not the aim of a relationship, right? And if you can just shift that compass from trying to make the girl happy to trying to have a high quality of life with somebody else, your decision making just gets so much more intelligent. And last but not least, what I'd call identity confusion. When I meet someone, what I'm looking for is who they really are. And all the noise and bullshit and conditioning and programming that's been just packed on top of that. And they can't see it because they're in all of that mess. But I can. And I can show that to them. They're actually showing it to me and I'm just reflecting it. But I can clarify it so they know how to act on it. When guys like us finally open up to some guidance, some influence from someone we trust and respect, things just start happening immediately. We start having those aha moments, that just clarity where something that made no sense suddenly makes sense. Some system that was backfiring, we finally see why it doesn't work. And it's so obvious what we should be doing instead. There'll be so many things that have frustrated you your whole life that somebody can just go, oh, it's because of this. And you just blows your mind when you realize, oh, how simple it is. How did I not see it? Getting a clear pathway that you can trust. That's one of the hardest things is we'll go dabble in different self-development ideas, but we've always got kind of one foot back because we're just not sure if this is worth the effort and investment. We're not sure it's going to get to where we want to go. We're scared that we're just going to go down another pointless rabbit hole. What a coach can help you do is map out a pathway where you think, shit, that's actually going to work. So I can do the step one knowing that it's going to lead to five and not worry that step one's a waste of time. You can learn how to desensitize yourself to fear rather than pushing yourself too hard so that you can make sustainable progress and growth over time without hitting this wall where you just get exhausted and burn out. Especially in group situations, you can see evidence of men who are further along the pathway that you're on and get that kind of validation from seeing like this is working for him and I'm doing the same shit he was doing. So we're going there, we're on the way. And if you get into a good enough group, you can see people from 0 to 100. You can see all those steps in between and see that like this is going to work. I just got to follow the steps. One of the things I really love to do as coach is help relieve people of the burden of their childhood beliefs, especially the not good enough type beliefs that they've been burdened with. I can show people that the beliefs they carry don't need to be carried anymore, that you can drop them, that they're not real, and all the weight that they put on your shoulders, you can just take that weight off, and then it's so much easier to move along, even on your own, when you're not weighted down by all the bullshit that someone else taught you. And one of the main shifts is just a kind of critical thinking that happens where you start to distrust all that noise that your mind makes, start to challenge it and face the evidence of what's true in the world. And you can change your perspective in such a dramatic way. Like one thing that nearly always happens when I'm working with someone after a long enough time is the idea of rejection just disappears. That you can live in a world where there is no such thing as rejection, even though you're going for what you want and people are saying no to you. The idea that you're being rejected is completely a perspective problem. You can get to a point where that doesn't exist. There's nothing to be afraid of. Now, obviously, this series is in part marketing. I want it to help you guys, but it's also marketing my services. But I want to make sure that nobody's signing up because they feel conned, that this is exactly what's going to help you. So we can do a low risk trial if you want. All right, everyone gets a free trial session, but if you're really not sure, if you want to see results before you're ready to invest, you can do a low investment trial where you get a taste of what it's like, and then the results will prove themselves without any risk to you. Now, I only offer this to a couple of people per month, so you may have to go on a wait list, but get in touch if you're interested, dan@brojo.org. And I finally finish up with one more client story about a guy I worked with, Simon. And I've actually worked with him. He's one of the ones I've worked with the longest, many, many years. So he did the online self-improvement thing for most of his 20s. He read lots of books, he watched lots of videos on YouTube, and he had pretty much zero progress, as most people do when they're just absorbing information and hoping it'll do something. For 10 years, he was single. For most of his 20s, he was alone, terrified of conflict and rejection. One session with me, he ended the friend zone he had been in for 5 years. It had been plaguing his life. 10 sessions with me, he had lost his virginity and had a robust dating life, and he knew who the fuck he was. 1 year later, he'd met the woman of his dreams just using total honesty, not having to try at all. 4 years later, he's married with kids. He does all these great hobbies. He's doing excellent in his career, and he's just never been happier. Now, he is a pretty classic case of about as bad as it gets for nice guy syndrome. 10 years on his own, no progress. 3 or 4 years, life of his dreams. That's the difference it makes working with someone else. That person doesn't have to be me. I know I'm selling my shit here, but if you want to work with someone else, that's fine. Just work with someone. Join a men's group or get a coach or something who knows nice guy syndrome, somebody who understands what confidence building is really about, who's done the walk themselves, from zero. Get someone else to help you. It will save you so much time, effort, and money in the long run than it is doing it on your own. I've done it both ways. Getting help's the best way. Coming up next is a long podcast about my whole life story as a nice guy. You can check that out. Thank you so much for watching the series.